Hey guys, it's Najam. Welcome back to another video. So it's finally time for me to review the Sigma SD1 Merrill. Now this is a very special camera. It has the same sensor from the Sigma DP2 Merrill. And if you haven't seen my review on the DP1 Merrill and the DP2 Merrill, go ahead and check out my channel. There's actually a playlist on cameras so you can look at all the camera reviews that I've done. So instead of buying the Sigma DP3 Merrill, I went ahead and bought the SD1 Merrill because this is an interchangeable lens camera and it comes with the 17 to 50mm f2.8 lens. And the idea was to have all the three Merrill cameras, the DP1 Merrill, the DP2 Merrill and also the DP3 Merrill, all in one camera. So I'd have this lens and it will be all of the three cameras in one. And also on top of that, it does have optical image stabilization, so I'd be able to use a slower shutter speed and get better image quality. The Sigma SD1 Merrill has the Sigma SA bayonet mount. It has the 15 megapixel full color X3 Foveon sensor from the Sigma DP2 Merrill. This is an APS-C size sensor with an aspect ratio of 3:2. It takes compact flash cards, and if you look at the screen in the back, this is a fixed screen and it is 3 inches with 460,000 pixels. It has 11 autofocus points and it does have a TTL based phase detection autofocus. The camera has a pentaprism SLR viewfinder and the viewfinder has 98% of coverage. The camera also has a quick return mirror, which is really cool because you can go up to 1/8,000th of a second of shutter speed, which is really fast for a DSLR of this type. The shutter speed can also go up to 2 minutes in bulb mode, but by default it goes all the way down to 30 seconds. The camera also has a manual pop-up built-in flash, which is really handy. The price of this camera at the time I bought this, I used on eBay, is £1,000. Okay, let's talk about the build quality. The build quality on this camera is just absolutely amazing. It's an absolute solid camera. It feels like a brick in the hand. It feels like a tank. It weighs 700 grams and it's the most well-made camera that I have held compared to even the G9 that I've got, which in itself is a really nice camera. This one just is on another level. Now unfortunately it does not have weather sealing. The 3-inch LCD display on the back is pretty poor quality. The colors are not really good at all. It almost looks monochromish and you can easily see the pixels at a normal viewing distance. So it isn't a really good display, but this is not a mirrorless camera. It's a SLR camera, so it doesn't have live view, and I've had it off most of the time. With the function button you can turn it off, and I've never really used it because to look at the images you're best off just bringing them onto the computer and having a sneak peek over there. Now one thing I love about the Merrill cameras is that they are really easy to use. Just like the Sigma DP2 Merrill, the SD1 Merrill has quick settings menu which has 2 pages and it's really easy and really simple to use. You can quickly access these different settings of the camera and it's just really simple and easy, and it gets to the point. As expected, it is a really big and heavy camera, especially with some of the lenses that you need for this camera, because you need really fast apertures, so they're going to be big lenses. So this is not a carry around camera. You're not going to be doing street photography with this, but if you do want to slow down and just take a walk around, you can actually get a prime lens and have a nice peaceful walk. The SD1 Merrill has 7 frames in the buffer, just like with the DP2 Merrill and also the DP1 Merrill. The SD1 Merrill also has 3 custom modes which have been really useful, and I've been using them all the time. You can see on the top of the camera it has the mode dial which has the PASM as well as the custom 1, 2, 3 modes. Now this camera also has a HDR bracketing and it goes up to 5 frames. Now the DP2 Merrill did only 3 frames. Now funny thing is, to use the HDR bracketing you have to turn the drive mode all the way to the end, which is the bracketing option, and then you can adjust it, and then from that you go back onto a different drive mode, which is from my experience the only one I have used is the single drive mode. So it's just a normal camera and you would then take a picture. It also has the mirror lockup to prevent motion blur and camera shake. Now before I get on to the image quality, which I want to talk about quite a lot, I want to also mention a very important thing about this camera, and that is the lenses. Now the lenses for the SA mount, because it is discontinued and it's a really rare camera as well as a really rare system, the lenses are really expensive, and also a lot of the lenses are not easy to find. Now another issue I need to mention about lenses is that you can use the M42 mount lenses on this camera, and I did get an M42 mount adapter and I did get an M42 mount lens just for this camera. Unfortunately, all the images are taken with this camera on manual lenses have color casts, and so in my opinion the images are unusable if you're going to use a manual lens, unless you want to shoot black and white, in which case then this is pretty good. I don't recommend using any manual lenses on the SD1 Merrill. I'm gonna go over the lenses now. I'll start off with the widest lens and then I'll go into the longest lens. The widest lens I have for this camera is the 8 to 16mm f4.5 to f5.6, and this is an absolute amazing lens. This is the widest lens I've got on any camera. One bad thing about this lens is because it's really wide, it's not very easy to tell whether the image is in focus when you're looking through the viewfinder. But other than that, this is an amazing lens and it has a really good image quality. Next up, I have one of my favorite but most hated lens for this camera, and that is the 18 to 200mm f3.5 to f6.3. Now I wanted to get this lens because it would make this camera really easy to use to carry around, because I would have just one lens and I'll be able to cover a wide focal range. Now this lens has the absolute best autofocus I have ever seen. The phase detect autofocus in the SD1 Merrill is exceptional. The accuracy is absolutely on point and it is very quick, but unfortunately that's only the case with this lens, so we're limited to this lens for the autofocus. But the bad thing about this lens is the optical image stabilizer in it doesn't work really well. It gives me really blurry images, even at 1/1000th of a second or 1/600th of a second. It gives me blurry images because the image stabilization is just not good. Next up is the kit lens that I got with this camera. That is the 17 to 50mm f2.8 EX OS HSM lens. This is an absolutely amazing lens because the image quality from this lens is really good. I forgot to mention the 18 to 200mm lens has really poor image quality, and it's gonna make this camera just like any other camera. You're gonna lose the Foveon image quality if you're gonna use a lens. On the other hand, this lens, the 17 to 50mm, does have the Foveon image quality and it is really nice. Because it's a constant f2.8 aperture, you do get a shallow depth of field throughout the whole focal range, and it's very nice. Unfortunately, this lens is not perfect and it has some issues. First off, the focus plane is curved, so you're either going to get the center of the image sharp and then blurry corners, or you're going to get the corner sharp but the center of the image blurry. Now you can't stop this lens down to f5.6 or f8 to widen the depth of field, but then you have to keep in mind this is a Foveon sensor and it does like a lot of light, so you will be losing quite a bit of light. The other issue with this lens is that it does have fringing and it doesn't look very nice and very professional towards the edges. The image stabilizer from this lens is very good, and overall it's a nice lens. I do recommend this lens as a walk around lens for the SD1 Merrill, and if you're going to have only one lens for this camera, this is the one that I would recommend. This lens, however, does not have good autofocus at all. In fact, the autofocus from this lens is quite appalling. And next up after that, I have my favorite lens for this camera, and that is the 50 to 150mm f2.8 optical image stabilized HSM lens. Now this is a really big and really heavy lens, but I can't find anything bad to say about this except the autofocus, but I think the autofocus has somewhat to do with the camera system rather than this lens. This is an exceptional lens. It's almost a perfect lens. I can't find any fault with it. First off, the lens is parfocal, so you can zoom in and out and it won't change the focus point. There is no focus breathing on this lens, so when you focus to something really close or something really far away, only the focus changes. The lens does not breathe in and out, and the image quality is sharp from corner to corner. And also the 17 to 50mm is also parfocal. You can zoom in and out and the focus point is going to be still the same. Okay, let's talk about the image quality. The Foveon sensor inside this camera is the same as the one in the Sigma DP2 Merrill, so the ISO performance is around about the same. You're best off sticking to ISO 100. ISO 200 is also pretty good. I have found that you can use up to ISO 800 if you turn down the sharpening on the images, and you can get pretty reasonable results. But saying that, compared to other cameras, the ISO performance is not really good, and so the low light performance is not really good at all. This sensor is really sensitive to lenses. After using the Sigma DP2 Merrill and doing a little bit of research on the SD1 Merrill lenses, I have found that there are no lenses on the SA mount that can match the lens on the Sigma DP2 Merrill. And that is a big issue on this camera. From my experience, you cannot get image quality like the DP2 Merrill from this camera. It simply does not have any lens that can rival the one on the DP2 Merrill. And this includes the Sigma art lenses for the full frame mount as well. And I've come across some comparisons comparing the 30mm f1.4 DC art lens with the Sigma DP2 Merrill, and you can see just by looking at the images side by side that the Sigma DP2 Merrill, it just seems like a completely different camera. And initially I was disappointed with the image quality from this camera, and it's all down to the lenses. So I browsed through my DP2 Merrill images and I just loaded one up, and I was again just mind blown, just astonished at the image quality that you get from the DP2 Merrill. So the sensor in this camera is really sensitive, and so you're gonna want to get some of the best lenses to get the best out of this camera. That being said, if you get images in focus and if you stop down the lens to about f8, you can get really sharp, really nice looking images from this camera. And it does have its own look to it. Some people have said that this has greenish colors, and I would agree. If you compare the images to other cameras, you do find that the images do look greenish. But if you don't compare the images, they look normal. And also, if you're really worried about the color, you can use film simulations in raw therapy. So just edit the image in Sigma Photo Pro, export it as a TIFF, and then just apply a film simulation to the image, and you'll get really nice colors. Now let's talk about the battery life. Now unfortunately I was a little bit surprised because the batteries are really big compared to the ones used in the DP2 Merrill. The batteries that these SD1 Merrill uses are the BP22, and these are lithium ion batteries, and I have 4 of these. They came with the camera, and unfortunately, just like the DP2 Merrill, this camera burns through the batteries. And you're going to want to carry around multiple ones if you're going to get this camera, just like the DP2 Merrill. Okay, let's talk about what I like about this. Obviously, no secret, I do love the image quality out of this camera. I was planning on selling this camera, but after using it for quite a bit, I have decided I might keep this camera because the images are really good. Another thing I surprisingly liked about this camera is actually the DSLR experience. Not having a mirrorless mode, not having live view mode, which is a bit of a letdown on this camera because the autofocus is appalling, but the experience of looking through the viewfinder, the optical viewfinder, looking straight through the lens is a bit different. Okay, now let's talk about what I dislike about this camera. Number 1, and that is the price tag. Now I understand that this is a rare camera and it has an exceptional sensor inside it. But saying that, after using this camera, I don't think it's justified £1,000 for just the camera and one lens. Now another thing I dislike about this is the viewfinder. The viewfinder itself is really nice. I have no issues with it, except that you can't really tell what's in focus. And this camera does not have live view, so it's really hard to tell what's in focus. And that brings me on to the third thing I don't like about this, and that is the autofocus. Now it's really hard to tell whether the image is in focus or not, and the autofocus doesn't really help because it's actually going to give you more out of focus images rather than images that are in focus. So out of 10 shots that I have taken, about 7 of them are out of focus and about 2 of them are a little bit misfocused, and the one would be probably in focus if you do get in focus. Now this camera does have autofocus micro adjustments, and it's really important to get that set up on this camera. Now I have set mine up, it seems to be doing a much better job, but even after adjusting the camera, it just seems to be back focusing quite a bit on different lenses, and it's just really annoying and underwhelming when you come home and you look at the images and most of them are just out of focus and unusable. So with all that out of the way, it's time to conclude my review. The Sigma SD1 Merrill is a studio camera, and then there's no doubt about that. It is meant to be used on a tripod with all the features that it has. It has a remote input as well and everything. You're best off using this with a tripod. And if you're going to use this with a tripod, I would say that the best genre of photography that lends to this camera is landscape photography. This camera is an absolute landscaping tool. The lenses that I have for this camera are all you're really going to need, and it'll cover everything for landscaping. Oh, I did forget to mention, you do have the UV IR cut filter that is removable. and you can choose infrared images on this camera, but I don't recommend infrared images because you can't get the colors to be right ever, because somehow the way the Sigma Photo Pro software reads the image, the colors are baked into the image, so you can't adjust the white balance like you would on a bare sensor camera in RAW therapy. This camera is amazing for landscapes, but apart from that, I can't really recommend this camera at all because it's just a really hard camera to use, and it's not very nice when you look at the images and they're unusable sometimes. I do recommend avoiding this camera because the image quality is not the same as the DP Merrill cameras. Just get the other three if you want, and that will be a better decision. I do know that there are some people out there that use the SD1 Merrill and they do get amazing images, and I have taken really good images with this camera as well. So that's it for this video. If you guys have any questions, ask me in the comment section below. Let me know which camera you're choosing and what you think about the Foveon sensors in this day and age. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in another video.